at ease, little feller, or fellerette. It's just your good old pal, Commander Moore. What's that? Oh man, you still don't remember me? I'm the commander of the UNSC frigate known as the UNSC Hot Dog. No? How about the other one in my fleet, the destroyer, the UNSC Diamond? Oh man, well, anyways, I guess you have a lot of learning to do. Like the fact that we recently shot a fusion warhead at a Covenant stronghold. No, you're looking at it, it's just completely gone now, reduced to ash and dust. Its populace reduced to one singular Gerald Hanai corpse on the ground out in the pouring rain. Somebody could paint a picture of this. But alas, I'm afraid I don't feel like sticking around this nuclear shit heap any longer, as we do currently have a quest for the runaway terraformer so that we can get more gravtech and thus continue expanding our fleet, so don't mind if I do. There is one little issue before we go though. We're pretty far away and we need to refuel. Having 2 ships in the fleet make us run a little bit lower than we used to on our chem fuel storage, so we run out much faster, twice as fast to be specific. Luckily, the region that we're currently landed in has plenty of trees, meaning that we can actually refine it ourselves. Time consuming, yes, but it does spare us the expense of having to purchase it from an orbital trader who also will probably take a couple of days to arrive. Once both our frigate and destroyer were fully refueled, it was time for us to head to this runaway terraformer. The Odyssey DLC's been out for over a month now, so I'm assuming you've watched me or one of your other favorite content creators go about doing these quests for the grav cores, or maybe even you've done it yourself. And I bring that up because I'm just gonna say I hope you don't expect me to go in there. Oh no, there's only one way for us to deal with this big old glacier. Knock knock. And there you've witnessed my preferred method for opening up doors in ancient structures. I guess technically we are going to be going inside, but just not the traditional method. For our infiltration of the facility, we're going to be sending in our Spartan team, which you recently have given us a name for, you wonderful people. From our good friend, the Watchful Scribe, we have the name the Swiss Guard, although I think we'll be calling them Swiss Team for short. Not exactly sure as to the significance here, other than the fact that, as you so put it, as a Swiss Army knife or jack of all trades, which makes sense and it looks like a lot of people agree with you, so that's what we'll go with. I love it. Swiss team would make their way inside and would immediately encounter some old fuel storage. Let's hope it's not too diluted to use on the ships, as it'll come in very handy. A bit further into the area and they would encounter Yield Terraformer, which they promptly shot up with a lot of bullets and destroyed. Looks like we have yet another grav core in our collection. In some storage containers, we would also find quite a few grav light panels. Now, I know, I'm always purchasing these from exotic goods traders, and I am going to continue doing so, cores and panels alike, but this will save us a lot of money. Now, before we begin on the 3rd ship in our fleet, and we wait on an exotic goods trader to sell us the materials we need, perhaps we should go about improving our 2 current ships. First and foremost, our frigate has a growing area with the hydroponics basins inside, but this is something that our destroyer lacks, meaning that if they were to be adrift on their own somewhere, or somewhere without the frigate or any nearby food, they might start starving, which is no bueno. So we're going to be alleviating that issue right here, right now. We're building some state-of-the-art artificial ecosystems, not hydroponics basins, but better than them. Hard to imagine, I'm sure, but hear me out on this. As you can see, the growth rate for rice plants is absolutely insane, up to and above 600%. You can plant rice in the morning and have it grown for dinner by night. Genuinely perfect for the destroyer, which doesn't have a lot of room for growing, meaning that just a few of these should be able to sustain the entire crew. We had a trader pop in, but it was the wrong type of trader, being combat that, I need an exotic goods trader. Looks like I'm going to have to call to make a request, and we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. And in the meantime, we're going to be taking on a few waves of the Covenant. It's just a couple of jackals, so I would send in the Marines. Best they not get too acquainted with sitting on their asses, letting the ship's defenses take out all our enemies. They could really use the training and a bit of a refresher. Plus, thanks to Winston Waves, we get 30 packaged survival meals, saving us the time and effort to cook some food. Speaking of which, since we're building a new ship for the fleet, we are going to need more crew to man that ship. And I think the easiest way to do that is to summon waves of enemies much earlier, and that way we have an option of possibly getting more colonists. But since these waves are only going to get harder and harder, I really don't want any of our people dying to Joe Hanai, so we'll let the ship's cannons deal with him for the time being, I think. And they would, rather easily. This particular case, there was no option for another colonist, unfortunately, so I suppose we'll take a caravan. And we would even have a UNSC caravan at that. Absolutely perfect, as we could use some equipment. Specifically, some ODST armor that the crew of our dropship will be able to wear. We have to be able to ensure that our hell jumpers have anything they need at a moment's notice. It's awful risky business dropping from orbit onto a battlefield. One set of armor isn't going to cut it though. Looks like we'll be doing a lot more shopping with orbital traders, such as the one that just sold us some ammunition. That way we can go about refueling all our cannons and century turrets without having to waste precious chem fuel to make the shells for ourselves. A couple of days later though, that exotic goods trader that we specifically requested arrived and ended up selling us plenty of grav cores, gravlite panels, and gold. All the things that we needed to make ourselves yet another grav engine. And now that the hard part's out of the way, we get to the, well, also not exactly easy part of building a foundation for a ship that is going to eventually become our dropship. Now, a dropship isn't exactly a specific type of ship, so I guess I'm going to kind of go with yet another destroyer design. I think it makes sense that we would at least have 2 of them in a fleet, and as we were building this new ship, we got a great big raid from Covenant forces, though I only caught the tail end of it, where we had absolutely slaughtered them, turning the white snowy ground a nice purple with all their blood. Oh, you poor dumb animals, we're going to sell all your weapons, armor, and other equipment that you've brought with you to our UNSC allies. That way we can continue expand. You already know what I'm going to do with it, but the fun part is we're also going to dissect your corpses for science. Now, as our scientists are hard at work finding out how many kidneys a jackal has and how many testicles an ungoy has, we are going to continue expanding the ship, as well as killing more and more Covenant waves of enemies, and in doing so, getting ourselves a random normal reward. Genetics drop. I guess maybe the scientists will like that, but personally I don't care. However, the next wave we ended up turning a brute and grunt into mincemeat on the ground with our orbital cannon, and thus we got a xeno-human who would join us. Not any of the alien species in the Covenant or throughout the universe, but simply a hussar going by the name of Sappy. That's a dog shit name. We need to fix that. Jasmine, now that's a name, and just so happens to be one of our beautiful patrons. And Jasmine will also be the very first of the crew of our new destroyer. Speaking of which, we finally finished up the foundation for the new dropship, and we are now going to be working on its skeleton. That's right, the hull of this majestic bastard. Now this destroyer is going to be a little bit smaller than our other, and the reason for that is because it's not going to have very large weapon systems, and is mostly going to be a ship, you guessed it, that drops our ODSTs into battle, and as such only really needs enough room for our crew to sleep, eat, a few weapons to defend it, and also, most importantly, of course, the drop pods themselves. And sure, this might also be because I'm starting to run out of room when I take the fleet into orbit to place them all close together on the map, because apparently those tiles are much smaller, but also because we didn't need that much room, sure. structure. In the final finishing touches of the ship, we also had more enemies coming our way. We easily defeated them, getting ourselves yet another crew member for the new ship, who just so happens to be lucky enough to be blessed with the brand new name of Azellar. Welcome aboard, friendo. I already know that you're gonna make us more than proud out there. And if you don't, you'll already be dead. We needed as many crew members as we could get, so as you can imagine, we ended up taking all the rewards that would give us one that we could get as well, giving us yet another crew member going by the name of Leldy, who has been a patron for a very long time, I think. Congratulations, my friend, and thank you. Thank you to all of you. With that, we finally have enough crew that can actually operate the new destroyer, which is going to need a new name if you guys would be so inclined to provide me with one. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. As I mentioned, the weapons are a little bit subpar. Although we do have more Hellfire sentries, there's not really a one big gun on this one, like an orbital cannon or some type of Mac cannon that can fire a nuclear payload, you know. But that's because it actually needs a little something else here in this bay. Drop pods. We are going to have a total of 8, which I think should be more than sufficient. Now, realistically, in the actual UNSC with these types of ships, I'm sure they could deploy hundreds, if not thousands of ODSTs onto a battlefield, but in RimWorld, let's be realistic here, I think 8 is plenty. Especially given the fact that they're going to be armed to the absolute teeth with some of the best armor the UNSC has to offer. We'll be fine, okay? However, having all of our drop pods ready at a moment's notice is only half the battle, pun intended, as we need a sustainable ship that our crew can actually live on in the meantime. And what that means is we're going to have to build them some proper beds and a bedroom, which is more of a large barrack. However, since it is also decked out with some of the nicest and most comfortable furnishings that we could provide them with, I don't expect that they'll care. We would also have to make a kitchen area for them as well, and I actually forgot to add in the stove for them to cook, but we'll put it in later. As you can see, this is a nice dining room with plenty of decor, but also most importantly, some of those artificial ecosystems so we can grow our own food, i.e. rice, since it is the fastest growing crop that we have access to. Sure, I may have forgotten that stove, but since these artificial ecosystems are so small, we can conserve plenty of space around the ship itself, meaning we can put a stove anywhere we damn well please. And we will. Just, not right now. Did I mention I forgot to build one? Now, while this has all been going on, though, behind the scenes, I've also been purchasing more of the ODST armor that we need for the entire crew. I should have more than enough in storage now for any of the upcoming crew members who will be joining us as well, ensuring that everyone is well protected and decked out. Now that that's taken care of, to clean up the clutter around here a little bit, I'm going to take the other 2 ships of the fleet and put them into orbit. Not to worry, we'll be joining them very shortly, but first we need more soldiers who can drop to the planet during a battle in these drop pods. And again, the easiest way to do that is by using old Winnie waves to our advantage. However, there is also another reason I had to put the other 2 ships into orbit. If you're playing along and trying to build a fleet of ships yourself, you might notice you're probably struggling to launch one and then the other will and that kind of thing. It seems like all of the components of one ship might get confused as to which one they're supposed to be attached to, so I just want to say if you're having that issue, figure out which ship to launch first, then second, and then ultimately third, and you'll feel a lot better and have less issues. But enough tutorial for one day, let's get down to brass tacks, like killing all these insurrectionist bastards for a nice reward, like some plasteel. Plasteel that I actually plan on selling to try to get us some more crewmates and soldiers. We're gonna request a slaver trade ship, that way we can turn them into the rest of the UNSC, and we'll even be able to buy the freedom of some folks. Speaking of soldiers, somehow I completely forgot to send Cat Dictator on either the destroyer or the frigate, which he is supposed to be a part of the crew on, and so I guess he's here. It's a good thing I saw him. All part of the plan, yeah. Anywho, though, the slave ship is here, and before we pass on the intel about them so that we can blister their asses, we're gonna buy some slaves, or free some slaves, I should say, who we're gonna force to, who who are going to fight for the UNSC now. Look, I know it's not exactly ethical, but most of the Spartan 2s were stolen orphans, you know what I'm saying? Well, either way, we now have 5 new soldiers, with that being Valentor, Llama Laughter, the Raging Squirrel, Brian Lapiraus, and Cookie Muncher. At ease, soldiers, you better get comfortable because the killing's gonna start pretty soon. But first, I suppose we could have you slip into something a little bit more comfortable and, dare I say it, deadly? Yes. Okay, but genuinely, all jokes aside, I'm actually very excited about this. I've always had a fixation ever since I was younger, because I was a huge Halo fan, about ODSTs dropping in onto the battlefield, so this is like a wet dream for me. Our new destroyer has finally joined the other 2 ships of our fleet in orbit above the planet. And now we sit and wait for orders, scanning the surface, looking for any signal of anyone in need of assistance. Ah, you hear that? A human distress signal. Let's give it a look, huh? Ah, just as I had suspected, a UNSC forward operating base, a fairly new one that's just getting off the ground. Looks like they could use some help. All right, people, let's go, let's go. Get a weapon and get out the door. Get into your pod and let's jump feet first into hell. Ladies and gentlemen, weapons hot. Phew, lucky for us, it looks like it's just some flesh beasts. They're native to this planet. For a second there, I was kinda worried that it might be the Flood. We would have really been screwed if that were the case. These little fellas are only mildly infectious, and that's normally only if they can get that disgusting little spike tentacle thing inside your flesh. Thanks to our advanced armor, that shouldn't be an issue. A few bullets and some flames later, and we are good. Which, sadly, is more than I could say for our comrades of the forward operating base. Looks like we responded far too late. The only thing we can do now is to bury their bodies, and also ensure that any of our military tech that happens to be here doesn't fall into enemy hands, such as this Gravship shield. My God, could you imagine if the insurrectionists got their hands on one of these, or even worse, the Covenant? Sure, they have their own that are much better than ours, but that's one less that we wouldn't have anymore. Best that we commandeer this one for one of the vessels in our own fleet, I'd say. Thankfully, the pods of our soldiers are custom and not standard UNSC issue, meaning that we can actually travel back to the ship in them. Sure, we don't really make a badass destructive entrance like the other ODSTs in other fleets, but you know what? If you don't like the way we do things around here, why don't you go and watch some of those other fleets do their own military operations? You dirty, no-good Anyway, I think I got carried away there a little bit, and so did our soldiers, as they are all tuckered out from their little battle, rescuing all that technology on the ground, and seeing all of the dead corpses of our allies, so they need some food and maybe a little nap. It was also at this point I realized I didn't build near enough beds in our barracks, so I tossed in about 3 or so more, and that should be plenty for the entire crew. But the improvements didn't end there. No, we still have a brand new shield generator. It's about damn time. Welcome to the ships of the future, folks. Now look here, put on your listening ears for the old rat papa, because I'm gonna level with you, alright? Some real talk. Up until this point, we have been extremely powerful, and we still are. But shields? Oh, shields are an entirely different level of powerful. We will be completely impervious to any ranged damage. As long as the shield is active, that is, but thanks to our large nuclear generator, our shield should be able to handle damn near anything. It's also kind of ironic that our smallest destroyer in the fleet actually currently has the largest power generator. This is a standard I think we should start adopting across all the ships in our fleet, as well as these artificial ecosystems, as they are so much better than hydroponics, as we've seen multiple times throughout this episode. So on the UNSC Hot Dog, we are going to be replacing all of our hydroponics basins with them. Much more effective, much more efficient. What more could a crew want? Well, they might want some of that sweet, succulent nuclear energy that I was just talking about, so we built yet another large nuclear reactor, this time on the Hot Dog. And this is perfect timing, as well as those artificial ecosystems, I kinda forgot to mention, actually require a lot more power, though of course they're worth it. Something else that requires a lot of power is the brand new advanced shield generator that we're building on the Hot Dog as well, and also a pretty basic one mirroring the one that we put on our dropship onto our UNSC Diamond ship. But with that, my friends, the entire fleet is more than well protected. As you can see, our shields are fully functional, operational, and more than ready to kick some Covey ass, as well as insurrectionists if they so choose to have their asses kicked. I do want to say that the shield that's over the Diamond is protecting everything, like our control room, crew quarters, and all those important bits of the ship itself, except for our weapon systems, but I don't have enough room to put it closer up there, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. I don't think it's going to be an issue since the fleet is almost completed, though. I am so incredibly proud of what we have built here together, my friends. Truly glorious. I don't know if anyone else has built a gravship fleet. I'm sure there may be plenty of people who have done it, but for me, this is a big first, a huge milestone, and a hell of a lot of fun, and I want to say thank you for always supporting me and also for giving me such great suggestions and ideas. A little bit corny, but as you know, I love you, and I'll see you next time.